Good afternoon. It is September 17th, 2020 at 3:18 in the afternoon. I haven't been making videos first thing in the morning the way that I had been just because I'm sleeping more at night these past couple nights. As I mentioned, I had that seizure from effectively just way too many stimulants all at once. And so going cold turkey on stimulants, not quite cold turkey, but much, much lower than I have been, means that my sleep is like it's an inescapable pit. So rather than my sleep happening in 3 or 4 blocks throughout the night and occasionally being up at 2 in the morning to do videos, I'm just sort of sleeping from 8 to 8 plus nap times. This will pass. Hopefully I won't have reason to make videos at 2 in the morning for a while though, or ever again, because I really need to be more careful about that kind of thing. It is so smoky here still, like half the country, I guess. I guess some of this smoke has reached Europe now. This is everywhere. And the only way that I know how to comfort myself about it is by thinking, the planet needs to cool down a few degrees anyway. Everything feels so apocalyptic. It's not like this is news. Climate change has been developing for generations, and we knew climate change was going to come along with things like increased frequency and intensity of pandemics. But none of this is new. This is the world we live in. But you know where we also live is in our brains. Each of us lives completely in our brains. For better or for worse. My brain had a nice, total, complete meltdown that I'm still recovering from. I don't feel back up to normal or anything resembling it, but I'm giving it time. The point being here is that there is very little that we can do about the world, but the outside world, but we can try to focus on our inner worlds as much as possible. I have been feeling so garbage about myself. I've been feeling just the lowest self-esteem, feeling like a horrible person, manipulative and evil, and all of these things about myself that normally I don't think. When I had my panic attack, I became convinced that I had just been deluded for years and that I've just been this narcissistic, abusive monster my entire life, that I'm too broken to be anything but destruction everywhere I go. When I explained that I was having these feelings to my husband and my sibling, they just kind of laughed. Like, not in an unsympathetic way, but it was a reassuring laugh where it was just like you think that's you. And even now as I'm saying this, I believe that they believe it, but I don't wholly believe it myself. I've been afraid for years in a sort of passive way that I'm more of an abuser than I intend, more of an abuser than I realize that I am. All of the worst sins of my abusers just kind of carrying forward to re-inflict those harms against others. But with that panic attack, it became a feeling of inescapable, visceral urgency. I handled it pretty well, all things considered. If I had been handling things really well, I wouldn't have gotten there at all. The fact is that when the world is so apocalyptic, it is so difficult to cope well. I have been not letting myself cope badly, but struggling to get away from coping methods that aren't good for me, or being able to moderate coping methods that can be okay in moderation. And I feel like in many ways I have been focusing more on trying to be productive, trying to be on top of things, trying to keep life semi-normal, to just focus on coping better. And I'm still going easier on myself than I have in the past, but it has become clear to me from this incident where I was just... It was a variety of factors, but that I still haven't made enough progress on my journey to being kinder with myself and gentler with myself, to keep myself out of harm's way from myself. I still have a lot of work to do there. I suppose these are skills we can't really test until shit gets real. I don't know how else to put it. It's like, how do you test your coping mechanism in times of extreme stress when you're not in times of extreme stress? I think what I'm gonna try to do is just avoid certain coping mechanisms entirely for a little while, because I know that we are going to have more points of stress and pain in the next few months, probably the next few years. I can't anticipate exactly what will happen or when, but we know more is going to happen, because it always does. And we're currently in a historical period of high friction, and I'm living in a country that has not done a lot to protect its citizens from these things. So I know that I am going to have more critical points of stress soon. So what I need to do is more sincerely practice really healthy coping mechanisms. I mean, what coping mechanisms is it difficult to do to the point of hurting yourself? I need to practice more meditation. I think meditation's the big one. I've been talking about that a bit. Mindfulness in general. I've been talking about that too. I think those are the only coping mechanisms that I can think of that can't really be done to excess. Because my other ones are like yoga and exercise, and while those are certainly better than substances and various other things that I love to do to myself, I can also get carried away with exercise and yoga. So, the world that I live in outside is apocalyptic. The world that I live in inside does not have to be. I don't need to focus on thinking about how apocalyptic it is outside. I should get better at being in the moment. I'm already working on it. I'll get there. I hope you will consider what I'm saying. If you find that you're having a hard time coping, maybe you're drinking a little too much, maybe you're not getting enough sleep and using caffeine to make up for it, maybe you are using cannabis excessively, maybe you're using drugs of some other kind. Trust me, I won't judge you. But if you have been nurturing a habit that you know may not be the best for you, I'd like to challenge you to try and take a break from it. I mean, it's kind of overwhelming to think, for instance, I'm never going to smoke weed again. And that all or nothing mentality isn't helpful anyway. But maybe you could think, like me, I'm going to take a few days off. I'm going to take a few hours off. Maybe a few weeks off. Don't drink for a little while. Don't smoke for a little while. And use that time to practice other coping methods. It's my plan. Just pulling back on things that have a habit of compounding into dangerous situations and practicing the better ones when I am doing slightly better. I know. I'm going to end here, but you tell me how you're coping with things. Are you getting the smoke from the fire where you are? Like, can you breathe? How are the coronavirus numbers doing where you are? I think we've gone down a little bit across the whole country. Like, I think that the slope is kind of trending downward. Just tell me what you're up to. Tell me what you're coping with and how. And you have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow or soon.